and there's nothing there, and he's going to make from the shapeless form a form, and he builds it and forms it. I always have the feeling, and I really have a feeling close to this, that it's more like a sculptor working from a block of marble, like Michelangelo or any other sculptor, and so I'm saying to myself, there's a form in here somewhere, but I don't seem to be finding it, and how do I get it? And it doesn't even feel really like something that I invent. So I'm not saying, I don't say to myself, now what motive can I come up with to make such and such happen? I find myself saying, now why did he do that? You know, what is the motive? So I'm always, I'm searching through the story, for the threads, throughout the whole book, but there's a funny sense that they really are there if I can only find them.
It's a discovery process.
Yeah, yes. It feels as much like discovery as it does like creativity.
I got the process back in.
Oh, you did.
but I really think, I've listened to you talk about all the rewriting that you do, and how you, here you are, and then you do the what-if thing, and you look backward as much as you look forward. Yes. And so in order to, you see backward and you say, okay, this is how it should be. And then you have to tinker from the backward back to where you were when you spotted it, because you've got to make all those pieces work. Right. So it's a very intricate sort of process. And I think more so in a traditional kind of mystery than in any other kind of process, because it does have to hang together. Right. It has to cohere in a way that a mainstream novel or a life does not have to cohere. And you know, it's surprisingly consistent with the form, because when I teach my classes at Arizona State, we start out talking about the traditional, or at least this year we finally are on track. We're starting where we should have, which is with the traditional mystery. And I always describe who do you consider the first, Poe or Doyle or? Poe usually, because Poe is the first one. The difference between a mystery and another kind of novel, like a Dickens novel, where there is crime, is that a mystery, the focus, the whole point of the plot is, in a traditional mystery, the detection, whereas in Dickens, it's part of the plot. So Poe was the first one in those 3 short stories that he wrote, the Murder Tales of Mystery and Imagination, to actually make the point of the short story the detection. And so he's given credit. But I had an author suggest on this program a couple episodes ago, Stephanie Barron, that Emma, Jane Austen's book, is a detective story, because it's about a fraud, people coming to an English village who are married, who pretend they're single, and Emma doesn't get it, you know. So there are all these clues planted with, as P.D. James would say, deceptive cunning but essential fairness throughout the book. And Emma only at the end learns basically that she's been the dupe partly of them and largely of her own personality. And I thought to myself, well, of course that's why they call the movie Clueless. I mean, it's perfect, you know. But so you can suggest that, you know, that Emma may in fact be a detective novel. There's a woman named Celie Register who wrote a detective novel. You know B.J. Runn. She's a professor at Hunter College. Hunter College, thank you. And she teaches crime fiction. And she likes to make a case for this woman as the first author of a detective novel. Well, I know I have a friend, a professor emeritus from LSU of English Lit named Robert Heilman, who wants to take it back to Oedipus Rex. Well, and that's often used, and not long ago somebody sent me an email and said, if you think about it, The Last Supper, you have 13 guys in a closed room, and only one of them is going to be the villain, you know. And I thought, you know, you can. Herodotus, there's a short story that crops up in some crime anthologies with the thief. It's sort of an Alibaba thing. So, and Oedipus. But anyway, aside from all that, what I say to them about the traditional mystery is that you need to think of it as a circle. You've got this closed circle of suspects, and you've got an enclosed place, because you can't have people wandering in and out at random if you're going to follow through on well, you get a crime, you get an enclosed place, you have a circle of suspects, you have police that are baffled, and you get a detective. And you're playing a game with the reader, and the reader, you know that the reader is going to be saying, which of these 7 people is it? And it's unfair in some very
popular writers today, as we know, who think of themselves, or others do, as mystery writers, will pull someone in on 2 pages from the end, and that's who did it. And a lover of mysteries will just toss the book across the room in disgust, because part of the fairness is the reader has to be able to know, what the where the detective is coming from, and who is inside this closed circle, and anybody outside of that closed circle cannot be the murderer.
Well, it's a board game. It was like Clue. Was it Miss Scarlet in the library with
true.
the candlestick, or Colonel Mustard in the conservatory with the revolver? If you don't limit that, then you can't really have a game, and the reader can't play along with you. Now, I have to say that in this current market, and there are a lot of reasons for that, which we don't have time to go into, like television and all the rest of it, that form is not very popular anymore, and hence the thriller, which is a whole different shape. A thriller is linear, and it moves along, whether it's an on-the-road novel or a chase or a spy story. Loot, your new book.
Gee, I'm certainly glad to find out I wrote a thriller.
I loved it when you asked me. I said, oh, this is what it is, Aaron. You said, really? But essentially, you've got in Loot, you've got your art curator who is moving along through, and he goes to different cities, and he's got different people coming in and out, and it's a whole different, it's a chase. It's him after something else. And in a thriller, you can have a detection in the sense that who the protagonist is chasing can be a mystery. I mean, you may have who is the spy or who is the serial killer, whatever. But it's basically a protagonist-antagonist kind of thing, as opposed to a detective story.
As there is in Loot, there's I hope a surprise at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's more a sense of, since we talked, I thought about it more and thought, why is this book different from my other books? And also, and I think it's true of thrillers in general now, that in a detective story, the question all the time is who did it in the reader's mind, and either how or why. If it's very classic, it's usually how. Nowadays, it's more often why. In the thriller, there's more often the sense of what's going to happen next, and what is this about, which is different from always focusing on the end in the sense of the goal of the detective story.
Well, the question is, will he catch him? Or will he get away? Yeah. I mean, it's not whodunit so much as will he get caught.
Right. Yeah, I think that is right. I think readers of a lot of mysteries, real mystery readers, don't really spend much time trying to outguess the author on who the villain is. They're really not whodunits. Maybe we need another word. Do you have one?
Not right offhand. And I think that we are in a state of flux and I've taken to calling it crime fiction because I want to embrace this whole variety of forms. And I really do think at the moment that traditional closed-in thing is got a smaller audience.
I do too.
Because it is more limiting. But my original point, which I kind of wandered away from, that I wanted to make is because it is a circular sort of a structure for a detective story, it doesn't surprise me that when you write one, that you're kind of inside doing that. I mean, it makes a great deal of sense that your creative situation would match the book. And Larry aside, and I mean, Larry doesn't really write traditional mysteries. Easy for him to say that he doesn't have to know who done it, because his books are really primarily are thrillers, or they're private eye stories, which is the same structure as a Western. You know, it's the hired gun kind of thing. The Matt Scudder books, I think, are wonderful and brilliant.
Yeah, I think Western's a good parallel.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's Natty Bumppo, you know, in modern form. Yeah. It's The Deerslayer, it's Shane, that sort of thing. And I love the private investigator novel, which is really the great American contribution to crime fiction. But Larry doesn't really write. He himself said in an interview we did with him, I did with him again for this program, that of his Matt Scudder books, probably only A Long Line of Dead Men resembles a traditional detective story, because that's the one based on the group of people who belong to a club, and they die off one by one. It's a little bit like a tontine.
Or like Robert Louis Stevenson's, well, I guess not, but I was thinking of The Suicide Club. Is that the name of the story, the one about the Suicide Club? I think it's called The Suicide Club.
Might be.
But
I don't remember, to be honest. But even Larry says that's the book that comes the closest to same thing traditional.